Shabbat Shalom on this Parshat V'zot haBracha. On this Shabbat V'zot haBracha, continuing our adventures of As the Torah Turns, we read that Moshe dies, but we do not know where he is buried. Perhaps that is for good reason, that we should not treat that spot as a place to go, as our equivalent perhaps of Mecca. And so Moshe does not get to go into the land of promise. Neither will any one of us here finish our work. We are taught lo alecha hamlacha ligmor, right? It is not up to us to finish the work, but neither it is for us to resist it, or to ignore it, or to not fulfill what we can do. And so each of us has our own work to do. But I'm not going to be talking about Moshe's death this morning. I want to drash a bissel on the following, which we sang as you came in. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time to every purpose under heaven. Let's sing the second verse. Time to build up, time to break down, time to dance, time to mourn, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together. With me, to everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time for every purpose under heaven. This melody, of course, was written by Pete Seeger of blessed memory, based upon the words from Kohelet, the book of Ecclesiastes, which we traditionally read here on Shabbat Sukkot. The first words of the book of Kohelet, Divrei Kohelet ben David melech b'Yushalayim, the words of Kohelet, son of David, king in Jerusalem. So we know, or we think we know, who wrote this book? King Solomon. Of course, King Solomon was the son of David, but why this name, Kohelet? Well, perhaps it is addressing that the name Kohelet shares the root that the word kahal does, which is what we are, a gathering. And so perhaps whoever wrote this, if it were King Solomon in his old age, wrote it representing all that he knew about all of us combined and life therein. The book continues. Havel havalim, amar Kohelet. Havel havalim hakol havel. Aha. Can't help but notice the repetition of the word havel. And we're going to dig into that a little bit. What does it mean? According to many translations, that the writer says utter futility. Utter futility. All is futile. How do we know to repeat that utter futility? Is because havel havalim, when a word is repeated one after the other, the same word, it puts more emphasis on that word. It makes it even more so. There are other understandings, however, of the word havel. Let's take a look at some of them. Havel or hevel can mean vanity, that all is vanity. And I'm not talking about this kind of vanity. I'm talking about the vanity of one who loves money. For instance, who will not be satisfied with that accumulation of money, nor the one who loves wealth with his income. So one who has all that they need and still is addicted to wanting more, this also is vanity. That also is vanity. Well, let's continue to see what else this word might mean. It can also mean futility. In the translation that I shared with you, utter futility, such as trying to take on a task that is utterly futile. Here we see Sisyphus, which is oftentimes, if you look in the dictionary under futility, you will see him trying to push that boulder up the mountain. Although it looks to me he's doing a pretty good job there. I don't know why it doesn't show him at the bottom of the mountain in these images, but that's not my responsibility. But let's move on. If you take on something that could be futile because it's something that cannot possibly be accomplished by you alone. All righty. Well, let's see what else we got here. Hevel. Hevel can also be vapor. Now, what kind of vapor am I talking about? It's the kind of vapor that we breathe all the time, but only see it in our breaths in the wintertime, when the air is cold enough for the vapor, for the hevel, to be visible. Why this is important in our understanding of the book of Kohelet, of Ecclesiastes, is because if you look at that breath, what happens to it? We can see it one moment, and then what? It dissipates, and it's no longer. This filmy vapor that is exhaled in breathing, invisible except on a cold winter day, and immediately dissipating in the air. Let's hold on to that understanding of hevel, because this is where the writer of the book of Ecclesiastes is going to take us, and this is where Rabbi Rami Shapiro is going to take us. Reb Rami is one of my teachers, although I have never studied with him, but I have many of his books, and I have studied a lot of his works. He points to hevel and this breath understanding, representing the brevity of human life, and that life being empty of permanence. And we can now understand why so many Jewish folks have found their home in Buddhist teachings. Because this makes sense in a way for some people, more so than the Jewish education that many of us had as children didn't make much sense. And we learned how to read it without understanding what it meant, and yada, yada, yada. But let's jump into Reb Rami's understanding of the book of Ecclesiastes. This is a quote from his book called The Tao of Solomon. And this is how he translates the beginning of it. Instead of utter futility, he senses it means emptying upon emptying upon emptying. The world is fleeting of form, empty of permanence, void of surety, without certainty. Like a breath breathed once and gone, all things rise and fall. Understanding emptiness and tranquility replaces anxiety. Understand emptiness, and compassion replaces jealousy. Understand emptiness, and you will cease to excuse suffering and begin to alleviate it. And so, we understand emptiness. Ayin. Remember that yesh came from ayin. What we see, what we can touch, everything that came from Baruch she'amar v'haya olam came from this place of emptiness. Reb Rami continues. Why does hevel awaken us to tranquility, compassion, and the desire to alleviate suffering? You might have been thinking and wondering the same thing. Because hevel frees us from the delusion of permanence. We're anxious because we desire permanence, and jealous because we imagine another has achieved permanence. The cause of suffering? The desire for permanence in an impermanent world. Everything must change. Nothing stays the same. It's a beautiful song. Look that up later. It's called Everything Must Change. Sitting in the sukkah, appreciating the bounty of the harvest, and yet knowing that a strong wind can bring the entire structure crashing down around us. That is the impermanence of the sukkah that we are reminded of after making it out of Yom Kippur. We work on ourselves internally, we step out into nature, and we look around and we wonder at the wonder of it all, knowing that we are a small part in the overall dream. So, here's some questions to ask ourselves as we dwell in the sukkah. Now remember, before I mentioned that our bodies are also a sukkah, right? They are a impermanent dwelling, an impermanent kli, vessel to holding our souls. So whether or not you have an opportunity to sit in the sukkah outside that you have built or someone has built, or ask this question internally. Am I living wisely in this moment? Is this a moment of mourning, and am I embracing grief, or am I resisting grief? If this is a moment of tearing, am I desperately holding together that which demands to be torn, or am I seeking the wisdom and perhaps beauty in the tearing itself? All of these questions arise from Kohelet, from the book of Ecclesiastes, and the opposites within: living and dying, giving and receiving, a time to heal, a time to mourn, a time to hate, a time to love. What is the life toward which Kohelet points? Reb Rami invites us into this answer: a simple life, where people are empowered to eat simply, drink moderately, work joyously, and love freely. All of us, every single human being. And so, my sweet friends, there is no escaping the impermanence of life, but there is a way to navigate it wisely and well. And this is the wisdom that Kohelet imparts. To everything there is a season. Turn, turn, turn. And on this Shabbat, V'zot haBracha, in which we read the book of Kohelet, may we find the strength to face each day and find the value of what comes our way. Find the joy in every trial and know that life is always worthwhile. Shabbat Shalom, Chag Sameach,